So I came to the US in August of 2018, and my life changed forever from that time. You know, I feel like the first 3 years of university were the most horrible days of my life. Um, Immediately, coming to school, like I just, for some reason, always found myself in some kind of, problem or drama. And it's kind of, it just gave me that a feeling of high school all over again. Like in high school, like I would always like have or be in some kind of conflict with someone, even if I didn't intentionally try to do it. And the feeling of, people not liking me, and that kind of stuff, it came up again, and that feeling of not fitting in. And I was already broken, and I was already going through all kinds of things, and it's almost like the enemy preyed on my brokenness, because I left home, thinking I was escaping, and I came to a foreign land, um, you know, for a degree, but really it was to get away from everything. And the enemy knew that all my defenses, all my, you know, yeah, all of my defenses were already down. Like I was already broken, and he did everything he could to to you know it's almost like adding more brokenness on top of brokenness, adding more hurt and pain and shame and rejection on top of everything that I was already feeling. And that's what led me to depression, because it was layers and layers and layers of hurt that had, gone on for years, that had, progressed for years, that led me to that place of experiencing severe depression. So, my first year of university, like, I got into some conflict with my cousin. Um, I'm not gonna go into the details, but literally the picture that people had in their minds was not even the picture that I had in my mind, because for me, as I said, like I've just always felt the need to have a male figure around. And that continued all the way up to university and all through university. Like from high school to university, I cannot tell you one time that I was just single. Like I just felt the need to have a male figure around. I just felt the need to always be talking to a male figure. And even when, breakups would happen or whatever, I would just be like, oh, whatever. Like, I'll probably be sad about it because I'm not a horrible person. But it would be like, whatever, like, on to the next. Who am I going to talk to next? Like, next, please. Like, that kind of thing. um yeah, so I got into this conflict with, my cousin, and that was horrible because I'm the type of person, like, I don't like to be I don't like drama. Like, I just don't like drama. And it just made everything worse, because here we go again with people not liking me, and here we go again with people wanting to fight me, and here we go again with rejection, and here we go again with shame. And I know that the enemy allowed all of that to happen so that I could isolate myself, and that's exactly what happened. Like, I would isolate myself as much as I possibly could. And the funny thing is, the friend that I had during high school, we actually, we remained friends throughout the time, and we actually came to school together. And that's when, God revealed everything that needed to be revealed. And in 2019, you know, that's when the friendship ended in 2019. I'm not gonna get into the details of that. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna get into the details, but just so many things were said, so many things were done, and the main cause or the main reason why the friendship ended is because after summer of 2019, I got into a relationship that I had no business being in. Like, I had no business being in that relationship. That person or my ex, he was not even my type. You know, he was very manipulative, he was very controlling. He It's almost like I had a replay of my childhood. And one thing I didn't mention about my childhood is that, throughout my childhood, as I said, I did say that I was very unhappy. But throughout my childhood, you know, I was very much emotionally abused. Besides getting, beatings and whoopings and whatever, I was very much emotionally abused. I was very much, you know, I was very much going through abandonment issues. I was very much abandoned. I felt abandoned, at least. Um, you know, there was domestic violence going on in my house. There were so many things, and I feel like that relationship was a replay of my childhood. So in 2019, I don't know who told me the brilliant idea of getting onto dating sites. And the funny thing is, like, I feel like, you know, I was very hard headed because I had already met someone from that dating site who was basically playing with my emotions, playing with my feelings. But as I said, like, it's almost like I would settle for less and I would tolerate things just because I just wanted to feel like there was always a guy I could talk to. Or I just wanted to feel like, there was someone around that, was calling me or texting me, or someone I could say is my boyfriend, even if they probably weren't, or someone I could chill with and hang out with. And when I mean someone, I mean a male figure. Like, it had to be a male. Like, a lot of the females that I knew were into drama and stuff, and I just wasn't with it. Even if I did have friends, like, it just had to be a male. And that's what daddy issues looks like. It's like you feel the need to always just have a male around, that person who can fill in that gap in the areas that your dad didn't love you. And so, yeah, I didn't learn my lesson from that. And I met my ex. And the funny thing is, at first, I wasn't even interested. But I feel like he recognized, like every other guy I was talking to before him, he recognized how vulnerable I was. He recognized how soft hearted I was. He recognized how, you know, just that need of wanting to have a guy around. And so he preyed on that. And, you know, we got into a relationship, and so many things happened in that relationship. We would always argue, we would always have some kind of fight. At first they were never physical, and at that time too, I also, you know came to that, conclusion that I had anger issues. But I think the issue wasn't that I had anger issues, or maybe I did, but I feel like some people have the potential to bring up things from within you that were dormant. Because I feel like I had anger issues that stemmed from, growing up in a home filled with abuse. And, I was just angry at the world for so long. But I would not act on it. It's like I had buried it deep down inside of me. And, my ex brought all of that out. Like, there were times I would get my nails done, like, because I always liked getting my nails done. I would get my nails done, and we would be arguing, and I would just like I would slam things, or I would try to crush things or break things, and my nails, like two three nails, would break off all at once. And just the constant arguing and manipulating, and the times when I did try to leave the relationship, like he wouldn't let me, or he would come back. And that time I was so like just so, I don't even know what word to describe it as. I don't want to say I was stupid, but I would say I was ignorant. He would always come back, apologizing, bringing gifts, bringing flowers. And after that, it would be all roses for 2 weeks. But then right after that, it would be back to, you know, it would get worse, honestly. He would accuse me of cheating, which didn't make sense because I would be with him before school, after school. I had my apartment, and there was a time that I was not even in my apartment. I wasn't in my apartment. I would always just be with him before school, after school, you know, like, yeah. So it didn't make sense why he would accuse me of cheating. Like he would just accuse me of things, and I would just sit and wonder, like, how, like, to the point where, like, I started feeling crazy because it's almost like here is this person telling me that I'm doing these things, and they're almost trying to convince me that I did do those things. So I'm starting to ask myself, did I really do that? And I'm starting to believe that I actually did those things, or I'm starting to believe that I'm this kind of person or that kind of person. He would call me names. He would like, and that time I had a very low self esteem. And in fact, growing up, I always had a low self esteem. And that also stemmed from, my dad. Like, it stemmed from there. So, he also made, my ex also made that worse, where, he would call me names. And like, in the moment, I would argue with him about it. But in my alone time, I would sit and I would start thinking, maybe I am this type of person. Maybe I am that type of person. And, it was just the most horrible time of my life. Like, during that time, I started drinking more because, like, he drank a lot, he smoked a lot. And, they say birds of a feather flock together. So it's like I was just in that environment constantly. And yeah, I was just buying into it. Like, during that time, I drank a lot, I smoked a lot. Like, it was to the point that I was smoking my problems away. And remember, I told you, like, back home, I was already introduced to, smoking. So it wasn't anything foreign to me. But the frequency at which it began, or it was going, it was intense. Like, and even before him, like, I had smoked, while going to school before him, before I met him. And that's just because, like, I was just so stressed, financial issues, you know just so many issues, being insecure, feeling like I had like social anxiety, struggling with my grades, just struggling in all kinds of areas, struggling with my relationship with God. And even before I met him, like, me going to church was not a frequent thing. It was like off and on, here and there. But one thing I will say is that during the time when I did go to church, it's like I would almost always cry. Like, and it would always be at the church that I'm currently going to. Like, I would almost always cry because there was just so much inside of me happening. There was just so much stored up in emotions, so much hate, so much hurt, so much pain, that every time I went to that particular church, or the church that I'm going to right now, I would just cry. Like, I would really cry. I would be just touched. I'll be just moved. And yeah, like, so getting back to, being with my ex, like, the funny thing is, while with him, like, he did not want to go to that church, and that's the church I wanted to go to. So he would always bring me to other churches because, for some reason, he just didn't want to go to that church. And later I found out why. But yeah, like, it's just so many things that happened in that relationship, like, finding out that he was married, and that's a big no-no for me. And although he wasn't like with the person, still, like, just thinking like, you're actually bound to somebody else, and here I am with you. And I tried to leave, and again, he manipulated his way into um me being with him. And God actually sent someone to tell me to get out of that relationship. He sent someone, and the person kept telling me, think of your future, think of, your little sister, think of your mom, like, you don't want to disappoint your mom. God sent someone to get me out of that relationship. And I tried so hard, but it's like a soul tie was already like created. And with this type of people, with people who are very manipulative, it's not easy to just get out of their group. It's not that easy. And yeah, like, so all of that happened in 2019. And around that same time, around Thanksgiving, that's when my relationship, or my friendship, all of my friendships with all of those, like that particular girl who was my best friend, and everybody else that I was talking to, like as friends at that time, it broke off. Like, it it's I tell people, like, God remove those girls out of my life like flies. Like, it's almost like, when you spray insecticide or bug spray or whatever, and all of the flies just drop dead. That's exactly what happened. It's like they all dropped out of my life, and it was over. It was really because of the relationship I was in. And I mean, I don't blame them, but at the same time, like, someone who is really your friend, who really cares about you, is not going to treat you that way. They're going to try their hardest, especially if you see that your friend is heading into danger. You're going to try your hardest to get that person out. But God knew why He had them get out of my life. But even with that, that was like the hardest time, because, with that, rumors began spreading, and, back to square one of, people not liking me and being in drama. And it's like it was a constant cycle of, every time I thought that, yes, I finally have my peace, then boom, something would happen where I would be in this cycle of drama and cycle of shame, feeling rejected, feeling like I have to hide, like I have to stay away and not be involved with people. And during that time, like, you know smoking increased, drinking increased, my grades dropped tremendously. Like, I was making straight A's. For my first semester was really tough. That semester I didn't make straight A's because I really hate math, so I almost failed math. But then the semesters after, like, I was making straight A's, my grades were good, president's honor roll, like I was doing good up until the end of 2019. Like, I think the that semester, fall 2019, was the last time I made straight A's. And I remember clearly at the end of fall 2019, I remember getting up one day and going to, like, there's like a counseling center that they have at school, and telling them that I urgently need to speak to someone. I can feel like something is wrong. And like, I could feel my body was alerting me that I was heading to depression. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to cope with it. All I knew is that I needed to talk to someone so that someone can give me advice, so that I would not slip into full blown depression. Because around that time, my awareness of depression and what depression was like started growing, and I did not want to go through it. And the feelings that I already felt, I knew that if it had increased, it would have impacted me tremendously. But I went to the counselor, and immediately she recommended like medications. And it just threw me off, and I just started like being unresponsive. I was like, I don't want to take any medications, and I just rejected their services and I went home. And during that time, like, I would drink full bottles of wine. Like, I would, in one night, I would drink an entire bottle of wine just so that I can, just fall asleep and not have to think about anything. So fast forward into 2020, like the beginning of 2020, I felt like I needed a break. So I went to Houston because my cousin lives there. And around that time, I did feel like I had peace, because that time I had also started doing like makeup videos, and I would just do makeup. It was my way of coping with everything that was going on. So I would like do my makeup, and those who have been following me for a very long time, they remember like I would always like do makeup and take pictures. And around that time in Houston, I really focused more on that. And also around that time, I also got my dog, and I honestly believe like God led me to getting that dog, because that dog is Poco. My dog is what really saved me a lot during the time that I was severely depressed later in 2020. So yeah, like the beginning of 2020, like, you know, co- um the the global thing that happened, it didn't happen yet. So, everybody was excited, New Year, whatever. And you know, fast forward, the global thing happened and totally just stopped everyone's lives. And for me, like, honestly, I was happy to be home. I was happy to not go to school, because around that time, like, I was going through so much. I had gotten sick. I had gotten really sick during that time. And the funny thing is that I had never been sick in the US before. So I was really struggling. I couldn't focus. Being back in that same environment of, toxicity and all of that, I couldn't focus. I couldn't, like, nothing made sense to me at that time. Like, I was almost like alive, but not living. Like, I felt lifeless. I was just honestly like, just putting on a front, but deep down inside, I was dying. Like, I was really dying. And, at some point during this global situation, I ended up moving in with my ex. Worst mistake ever. And I had no choice to do it, because me personally, like, I don't like living in, you know, I don't like living in toxic environments. And at that time, I had a roommate, and we started getting into issues because she was friends with my old friend. So that became a whole drama. Like, so many things happened. And I'm not gonna blame her, because partially it was like it was 50-50, like both of our faults. And I couldn't stay in that environment. So I had to make a choice. Either I move in with, I go live with my ex, or the guy I was with at the time, or I stay and go through the things that I was going through there. And I could not stay. Like, nothing in me wanted to stay. So the funny thing is that at that same time, my ex's brother they were going through some battle, and he didn't have a place to stay, so he was staying with me for a while. And that caused, like, issues with, even the leasing office got involved, and a whole bunch of drama. And then he ended up renting a room in someone's house and living there. And so literally I was there with him. So he had no furniture, nothing. And the funny thing is that I had all my furniture, all my bed, everything in my apartment. But just because of peace, I could not stay there. So I was literally in that room with him, sleeping on the floor. and all of that time stuff is going on around the world. So I was almost dead. Like I didn't care anymore. I would smoke every day. I would, just I couldn't focus on school. School was still going on. I was not active in school at all. Like I would just do homework or whatever and submit it. I would show up, but I really mentally was not there. And eventually we ended up getting a place, and that was like just terrible because you know everything just got worse at that time. The arguments increased. Everything just got worse at that time. And it came to a point where I was like, I think it was July, getting into August. And I was like, no, I have to get out of this place. I cannot continue living like this. Like, I feel at that time, God started like, speaking to me. And the funny thing is that during that time, I was so confused about who God was in my life. And although I always acknowledged God, I know God was there. But as I said, the enemy always tries to prey on your weaknesses. He always tries, to just push you a little further away from God, push you as further as he can away from God. So around that time, I started getting into spirituality, you know, like the universe and tarot cards. And I remember there was a time like I would watch tarot card readings for like hours. Like that is all I would do. Like I would lay down or I would whatever I'm doing for hours. Like it became so addictive because like I don't know how they do it, but it's almost like I felt like they were reading my life. And it was so confusing. That time created so much more confusion. I felt so lost. I felt so disconnected from God. But as much as I felt disconnected from God, God was still right there with me. And so July, in July, like, I just came to that place of, what? I cannot do this anymore. And I do not want to be here. And I told my ex, hey, we're living together, but just don't consider me your girlfriend anymore. And I think he thought I was crazy. And I don't think he believed me, but I was so serious. And I started like, making plans to leave and stuff. And one night, something happened and we ended up getting into like a huge argument. And, it got physical. And from that day, like I had the moment, because he slapped me, and the moment he slapped me, like I had a huge flashback of my childhood, like, seeing, just seeing like, my dad hitting on my mom and stuff like that. And I told myself, I will never go through that. I will never live with a man. I will never get married to a man or be in a relationship with a man who will abuse me. And so like it was it everything went downhill from that day. Like I just couldn't cope. Like I was in bed for like 2, 3 days crying and just feeling so sick and tired. And I just remember like crying out to God and calling out to God and just asking him to help me, like to help me. And that time also I got my tattoo and I tattooed um the date that my ex slapped me. I tattooed that date on my hand because I told myself that I never want to forget that day. I never want to forget that day. I never want to be in this situation ever again. And yeah, fast forward, I ended up leaving the relationship. I ended up moving out and getting my own place. And the funny thing is that during that time of me moving out, like I left my dog. Well, she was still a puppy. She wasn't even a year yet. And my ex also had a dog. So I left my dog with him until I had gotten to my place and settled down and everything was okay. And then, only to find out that my dog was pregnant. And this was like August of that year, August into September. During that time, I had gotten a job because I didn't have a job. So I had gotten a job and I was working, and everything was starting to look okay. And obviously my ex had tried to come back, with flowers and money and gifts and everything to try to persuade me to stay in the relationship. But I just couldn't. I knew for a fact that I was done. Like, I was over with it. And even after that, it was such a huge battle, like just trying to get rid of him. And I had also like developed a fear, like whenever I saw his car or a car that looked like his car, like my heart would like skip several beats. Like I would like, I would start getting nervous, I would start getting scared. I would avoid going to places that I know that he would go to. Like I really started really isolating myself. And all of that time, just being in that place of so many emotions, so many things going on, so many things going on in my mind, you know, that's when I fell into severe depression. And on top of that, like, right after dealing with my ex, you would think that I would learn my lesson, but I started talking to somebody else who ended up like really just playing with my feelings. So, like, everything just came together and exploded. And I remember that day clearly, October 1st, 2020. Yes, October 1st, 2020. And it's so funny. It's so funny because I actually got married on October 1st, 2022. It's so crazy. But October 1st, 2020, I just completely lost it. I turned off my phone. I didn't go to work. I didn't go to school. That day was when I actually acknowledged that I was depressed. And everything just went downhill from there. Like, I had no money. I couldn't pay my rent for 3 months. And I'm just so grateful because by some weird happening, like, the apartment people did not kick me out. They will obviously send me notices and, alerts of my balance, but they did not kick me out. During that time, I also had credit cards. My credit score dropped significantly, and I still have not recovered from the loss at that time because I didn't have money to pay off the credit cards that I had. The credit cards that I had, like, I used them to pay for food because, I didn't have any money. Like, it was just so hard. On top of that, my dog being pregnant, and the whole time she was pregnant, I was actually in denial because I couldn't believe that that was actually happening. And then she gave birth on Halloween, yeah, Halloween of 2020, and she had three puppies, but two of them died. So then now I was left with she and one of her puppies, and having to take care of them, having to take care of her after birth, having to take care of the baby all by myself, all while being depressed. It was just like the hardest thing. And, you know, everything was just so terrible at that time. Like, I would do school online. Like, I was very honest with my professors. I told them that I was going through a hard time and like I couldn't focus in class. And, you know, I would like, I had the opportunity to like do class online. Actually, during that time, class was actually virtual. Classes were actually very virtual. Yeah, but I was still honest with my professors. And during that time, like, my grades also dropped, like, because I couldn't focus, I couldn't think properly, I couldn't study. And yeah, like, you know, that happened. And on top of that, like, during that time, I started getting closer to God, and I started, I would have very prophetic dreams, but obviously, like, I wasn't mature enough to know that, what they meant, or, that God was saying, that He was going to do these things in the future. I had that sense of, oh, these things are gonna happen right now. And I also became so impatient because I just wanted to escape. I just wanted to go. I just wanted to leave. Like I had suicidal thoughts. I had, yeah, I wanted to kill myself, honestly. Like I wanted to die. I honestly wanted to die. And during that time, the funny thing is that, like, God started talking to me about marriage, and it didn't make sense. So I was like, okay, maybe God wants me to get married. Like, maybe that's the way I will escape. And I'm not going to get into too many details, but you know, I met this guy in a totally different state, and we were talking. He was a Christian, whatever, and you know, for Thanksgiving into my birthday, because my birthday always falls like the week after Thanksgiving. Like I went over to meet him, and I all honestly just wanted to get out of, just to leave, because like I was stuck in that place since 2020, since the beginning of 2020, and I just wanted to leave. And he proposed to me and wanted to get married and all of that. And even all of that, that part of my life, I will never understand why it happened, but I will know that the enemy was definitely trying to keep me from what God actually had for me. And, I mean, now I know that, but back then I didn't. But thank God that He didn't even allow that to go very far. Like, it's so crazy because I had actually made plans to move over to where he lived, and just to leave everything that I had came to the US to do, which was mainly my to get my degree. And yeah, like, I had plans of leaving, and I'm not gonna beat up myself about it, because everything was just so much for me to deal with, that I was just trying to find any form of escape that I could. And yeah, like God broke that off, thankfully. And I remember during that time while it was going on, like, him proposing and, all of that, it just felt so demonic. I would just always feel like a demonic presence around me. I would always feel so weighed down, so like I would just feel so weighed down. And I never really understood what it was, but I feel like that whole thing was so demonic, so out of God's will for me. And you know, into 2020, God broke that off, so I ended up having to stay here. And God was just so faithful to me during that time. And I know that I rambled through this entire testimony, but I just want to say, like, God is so faithful. God is so faithful. Like, I had gotten my job back during that time. And also, one of my professors, I was just so transparent with her. And she had, connected me with a nonprofit organization. And they paid off my rent for like 3 months. And that was such a huge blessing, because it's like now I was recovering from depression. And you know I didn't have a lot of money and stuff like that, just trying to get back on my feet, just trying to make sense of everything that happened in 2020. And just having someone pay my rent for like 3 months was just such a huge blessing. Pay for my rent, all of my textbooks, and all of that. So it was just such a huge blessing. And yeah, in 2021, the begin from February of 2021 all the way to, I would say, all the way to summer of 2021 was really a healing process for me. That time, like, I started going back to church. you know all throughout, I would be reading like scripture to the best of my ability. I was engaging in more self-care, just taking care of myself, taking care of me, just trying to recover. And I think one thing that people don't talk about, they always talk about the process when you go through depression, But I feel like the aftermath of depression is as worse as depression itself, because trying to get back on your feet after depression, trying to make friends again, trying to, be social again, trying to, find out who am I now, because one thing depression does is that it takes from you, it sucks away from you the things that you liked, and now you have to get back into those things, or you have to develop new hobbies or new skills. And that was hard, that is hard, and I think not a lot of people talk about that, like, what happens after depression and the recovery process. So yeah, recovering during that time, yeah, just trying to recover, trying to stay afloat, trying to keep my head up, trying to stay close to God, and just getting back to myself. And I think I'm gonna stop here because, you know I guess I can say that in at the end of summer in 2021, that's when I met my husband. But there's also stuff that happened before I met him that I'm probably gonna have to make a whole different video, because I feel like that's leaning more into my marriage testimony. But the purpose of this video is really to share all of the things I went through, and how, God still took care of me all through it, even in my disobedience, even in my hurts, even in my pain. And really, the purpose of this video is to share with you that you will never go too far. You will never go too far. You will never go too far. God can always bring you back. God is always there to love on you, to accept you back. And that's really my testimony of, you know, getting into things that I wasn't supposed to get into, and living a very worldly life, and, you know, living a life that was so unpleasing to him, living a life that was so distasteful, living a very sinful life. And, you know, God still taking care of me during that time, still trying to get me back to him, still providing for me, still protecting me, still keeping me during that time. And the moment I surrendered to him, and the moment I said, Lord, I cannot do this anymore, Lord, I need you, his arms were so open to receive me. His arms were so open to embrace me. And yeah, I'm just saying all this to say you have never gone too far. You can never go too far. Never feel ashamed to run back to God. And yeah, like, God was just a loving father to me in that time. In that time when I thought that I had lost everything. And that's really the reason why I created my business, Unshakable Sisters. Is it's not even about the hair bonnets, honestly. It's really about being that big sister, because a lot of the things I went through, and obviously, like, it's a video, so I can't go into as much detail as I want to. But a lot of the things that I did go through, like, I feel like if I had a solid support system, or I had somebody, very strong in my corner, a lot of the things I went through, I probably would not have gone through them. I would not have had to deal with them. And I feel like a lot of, like, women, a lot of girls are just so misguided and so misled, and they go through a lot of things in secret, they endure a lot of pain in secret. And, they have no one. I mean, they have their friends, they have family, but really and truly they have no one. And that's why I created Unshakable Sisters. And even me sharing my testimony is in hopes that, someone, a woman, a girl somewhere, will find this video, and they will know that, hey, there is hope for me. Hey, God has a plan for my life. Hey, God has a future for me. And yeah, that's really the purpose of this video. And I mean, God pulled me out of, living a life of fornication, living a life full of drinking and smoking, going to clubs, going to parties, um, you know, just living a very sinful, dirty life. And he took my life and did a complete turnaround to the point where, like, now I look at my life and I'm looking back at my old life, and it looks totally opposite. Like nothing looks the same. And I just want to encourage you that God has a plan for you, and God loves you. Even in your pain, God loves you. Even in your hurt, even in your sinful life, God loves you, and he has a story inside of you, and he wants to heal you. If he could heal me, he can definitely heal you. And healing is not a thing that just happens with a snap of a finger. I feel like healing is a process, and I still feel like, daily God is still healing me from some things and from some wounds. And God loves you so much. I don't know who even made it this far in the video, or who even cared to listen, but I just want to let you know that God loves you so much, and he cares about you. And never for a moment should you doubt that he is with you, because he is right there with you in the middle of that pain, in the middle of that shame, in the middle of that rejection. God is right there with you, and he loves you, and he cares for you, and all he wants you to do is to come to him, because everything that you're looking for in the world, you're not going to find it. The love that you're looking for, the peace that you're looking for, the freedom that you're looking for, you're not going to find it. And take it from me, because I went to the world looking for those things, and I did not find it. The only time I found true peace and true freedom and true love was when I fully and completely surrendered my life to Christ. And I just want to encourage you. I just want to encourage someone. I just pray that, you know, that you give God a chance. Give him a chance. Give him a chance to show you that there is better, to show you that he can free you, that he can deliver you from the suicidal thoughts, and from depression, and from anxiety, and from ADHD, and from everything that you think that you're going through. He can free you from it, from the divorce, from the domestic violence, from everything. He can free you from everything, and he has a better life awaiting you. And he has a better life awaiting you. And he loves you so much. He loves you so much.